Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/The Rob Burgess Show. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Hello and welcome to the Rob Burgess Show. I am, of course, your host, Rob Burgess. On this, our 14th episode, our guests are Brandon Chapman and Josh Sigler of the Sounding Off with Chap Sig podcast. This is a milestone as it's the first episode recorded live with two guests. But before we get to that, I need to let you know how you can support the show. I love presenting this podcast to you every week. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to help the podcast continue on the journey of more success, there are a few very simple things you can do. First, support those who support the show. I am excited to announce we have our first sponsor, Audible.com. For you, the listeners of the Rob Burgess Show podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. A book I would personally recommend that pertains to this episode is the new Chuck Klosterman book, But What If We're Wrong? Thinking about the present as if it was the past. During this conversation, you'll hear us allude to an essay adapted from this book that was published in GQ. Chuck Klosterman asks, "Will violence save football?" Whatever book you pick, you can exchange it at any time, you can cancel at any time, and the books are yours to keep. To download your free audiobook, go to audibletrial.com/The Rob Burgess Show. Again, that's audibletrial.com/The Rob Burgess Show for your free audiobook. And second, follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, and review everywhere the podcast is available. Whether it's iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Facebook, Twitter, TuneIn, or RSS, you can find links to everything on the official website, www.therobburgessshow.com. Even if you did these things and never listened to another episode, it would help more than you might realize. All these companies track interactions, and every little bit helps. All this will help the podcast reach an even wider audience. Now for today's show. This is a companion piece to the 4 most recent episodes of the Sounding Off with Chap Sig podcast. They gave shout-outs to this podcast on episodes 19, 20, and 22, and were kind enough to have me as a guest on episode 21. Brandon Chapman, Chap, was born, raised, and currently resides in Peru, Indiana. He grew up a dedicated and die-hard Hoosier basketball fan. He graduated from Peru High School and attended Manchester College for 1 year. In that 1 year, he finally found love. That is where he met his hetero life partner, Sig. He currently is a senior at IU Kokomo, pursuing a degree in communications. He plans on taking over the world with his podcast, so Sig and he can sit on an island and count their money. He is married, not to Sig, and has 2 dogs, Milo and Lucy. Josh Sigler, Sig, is a fairly accomplished dude who doesn't like to take himself very seriously. The Tipton, Indiana native graduated from Manchester University with a degree in media studies in 2006 and spent 10 years as a journalist before opting to leave the business for greener pastures. The multi-award-winning reporter was honored by the Hoosier State Press Association in 2015 as producing the top sports feature series, where he covered several angles of how concussion knowledge has evolved over time, the attitudes towards head trauma, and the viewpoints of local coaches, athletes, trainers, and doctors on the subject. One final note from me, if you've ever listened to the Sounding Off with Chap and Sig podcast, you'll know the parental advisory label on their podcast is well earned. As such, this episode contains explicit language. And now, on to the show.
You might want to get the little explicit tag for your iTunes episode.
I'll give a warning for sure.
You've had all of these like classy folks. You're a couple of trailer park assholes.
Okay. Well, thanks for being on, gentlemen. I appreciate it. We're rolling now, in case you don't know.
All right.
Just starting now. So this is my first show live. I do all my recording usually over the phone with a wiretap that Mr. Sigler here gave me on his last day at work. He gifted it to me. I handed it down. I was going to start my podcast, and it was serendipity. So he gave me the keys to the kingdom in a certain way. So, but this is the first time I'm recording live. This is very exciting.
You'll find this exhilarating.
Oh.
See, here's the good thing that you do. You edit.
Yeah.
Ours doesn't.
Okay.
Unfiltered.
If we fuck up in the first 20 minutes, well, shit, that's gonna be a little blip when they listen because we don't edit.
I know. I leave the mistakes in. It's really just anything, and that's why I like to let it sit for a few days because I like to think, because you guys are unfiltered and I respect that about you. It's just that I like to let it sit and think about, do I want to put that out in the world and have my name attached to it? Do I? Maybe not. So yeah. I do cut and I don't cut a lot actually. There's just like a few, and there's like things I'll say like jokes I don't think are funny or like conversations that don't go anywhere or I nervously laugh a lot and I say so sometimes I cut that out. So I don't do a whole bunch of editing. So
you gotta be unfiltered, Rob. You gotta let people. I mean, you just gotta let it fly.
Yeah, and I respect that about you guys. And in my personal life, Josh knows that we've said many things when we're alone in the newsroom that would get us fired and excoriated and no one ever want to talk to us again if they were recording. But I am a public person in my job. That is one thing.
That is a valid point. You put your name on everything. We do not.
You guys, even in the show name, it's Sig and Chap, so it's like not even Google searchable necessarily. Yeah, so, right. And that's cool, man. That's fine. But I have a weekly column where my face and my name are in the paper every week. So
see, if you're ever gonna make it famous, though, you need an alias.
Oh wow!
That's
okay.
what you need to keep in mind.
Is this like in wrestling? What should my alias be?
This bird.
This bird.
This bird. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
I see you as like a Dick Warren.
Dick Warren. Wow, that name sounds familiar.
I just came up to me. I thought it was Dick Warren.
Dick Warren.
Peter,
is this like a rabbit?
Dick Warren. Like a Dick Warren. You've worn the dick. Like you've worn the Dick Warren.
Okay, someone else has got it. Okay.
I wasn't making it that way, but okay.
I would just like to throw Peter Goes In Ya out there. That'd be a good one for you.
Exactly.
Howie Felter Snatch would be a good one. I got these for all 4 days.
So we should probably just say, as we've said, their podcast, if you haven't heard it before, it's Sounding Off with Chap and Sig. There is a little explicit label on the iTunes for reasons, well earned. You guys make well use of that. you guys make that
brothers in podcast
make that necessary.
I just want to say, if anybody goes back to like the first episodes, like it's really bad. Like the first 5 episodes, we're very loose with the fucks. We try to get a little we try to get a little more adult and professional and only put them when we're really passionate about something. So if you go back to an episode within the first 5, you're gonna be like, these guys are horrible. It's frat boy humor.
Yeah.
But we've kind of transitioned from there.
No, and that's fine, and I enjoy that kind of humor. I would say, I think it's safe to say almost nothing can offend me. I'm really very thick-skinned. I've heard it all. I've seen a lot, so I don't really care one way or another. And you won't personally hear me curse, but if you guys want, you've already let it fly, so continue doing what you're doing. So I guess we should start out and just introduce yourselves. Tell people what you want them to know about you. Whoever wants to start first.
I am Chap. I'm from the Northern Indiana region. Working on a college degree in communications.
From Indiana University, don't sell yourself short.
From Indiana University of Kokomo. I get to do the podcast. I am so sorry, that is poor etiquette by me. I got to turn my phone on vibrate. I get to do the podcast with my hetero life partner, Sig. So that's what makes it fun.
This is extremely special for me because I've been Chap's been my best friend for about 10 years, but Rob's been a really good friend of mine too for about 6 years. We worked together in a previous life, and I moved on to greener pastures and have started a podcast here. But it's really an honor to be on the show, be a guest on the show, Rob. So like what you do, love
Thanks,
being
man.
able to see you continue to thrive.
I want to give props to Rob because when he was getting his ball rolling before we did, and so I got to pick his brain, and he was very helpful. You sent me a shit ton of direct messages full of information that were very helpful in getting us going and
No problem.
getting our ball rolling. This is actually the second podcast that I've had of my own. The first one, a little. Not quite up to snuff, I guess, as far as how I wanted it to go. All along, I wanted my life partner, Sig, to be a part of it. Schedules didn't really allow that, but now...
What was your first, what was the focus of your first podcast?
It was sports, just like that. It was the CNC Sports Connection.
Okay. Who was it, you and someone else again?
Yeah, it was me and another guy.
Okay.
So, that's not gay.
He likes guys too.
Oh, okay.
So, but no...
We break news on the Rob Burgess Show all the time, so...
So it was always meant to have Sig. His schedule finally allowed us to do what we're doing. It's growing. It's a good time. It gives us an excuse to hang out and be dudes.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Sig, you're up.
Oh, I thought I already told you enough about it. Yeah, gave up the journalism life to try and make a little more money and have a little less stress. And I miss the camaraderie. I miss the adrenaline of breaking a story, but I don't miss the rest of it. So I got out at a good time when I was able to, get some notoriety and then go ahead and move on. So.
Well, that's cool, man. And don't sell yourself short, Sig, because I've worked with this man for years and years, like you said, and I think highly of my own skills. Of course, he's got his pinky up right now as he spits into a spit jar, but keeping it classy
Fancy
for the people.
Fuck.
Absolutely. So Sig's a great journalist. He's a great writer. He's got the plaques to back that up. Also, I do too. I'm not going to say I don't, but he's just a really good dude, man. I'm glad to see he's still getting his voice out there. And I just met Brandon in the flesh for today.
Is that everything you hoped it'd be?
Yeah, and actually, we're going to get into this, but he called me out for being a hipster in the last in their.
I do have to say, Sig undersold your penis. It is a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
What does that have to do with hipster?
No, I'm just saying. That's just. I wanted to make awkwardness on your show, and
your mission accomplished.
Yeah, can it get any awkward? More awkward?
it could because he called me out for calling him a hipster, and I want to let it be known that if that came across as a derogatory term.
Well, I've heard you talked about hipsters, especially at the Wrigley Field situation before, and I haven't heard you had a lot of good things to say about the hipster community. Not that I speak for the hipster community, but
they're a bunch of pretentious pricks and assholes, and you're not giving me that vibe.
Here's, I think, where you might be mistaking things. All right, so I think you summed it up pretty well when you said that I'm not a hipster. I'm probably more closer to a hippie. Like, I actually probably identify a little bit closer with the original counterculture movement.
I didn't know hippies still existed. I apologize.
No, I'm getting to this. Hipsters are the descendants of the hippies. They are the next generation. Now, they've picked up a lot of pretentious accoutrement in the process of being descended from that. But I try to go more to the source. Now, you said something that was interesting that I want to go back to, and I don't mind you calling me a hipster. You can call me that. Like I said, I've been called worse, and if you want to, any labels anyone wants to attach to me. But you said that hipsters hate the mainstream. Like, they see the mainstream, and they just because something's mainstream, they hate it. Is that a fair assessment?
That is my perception.
Okay.
And if that comes across as ignorant, I apologize.
No. I think you're onto something, but I think you're only got half the story. So, yes, when things are mainstream, I'm initially suspicious. Always. That's just maybe that's why I'm a journalist, right, Josh? Question everything, as the X-Files once said. But I don't hate it because it's mainstream. I've just found in my life that things that I find important and valuable are not what most people think are important or valuable. So it's not that I necessarily set myself apart from that. It's just that what I naturally think is good and decent and important, especially living in Indiana, Josh knows this. We've talked about it. Yeah. You kind of set yourself apart by having a certain viewpoint and a certain way of looking at things, and it's not.
You open yourself up to become a punching bag if you have certain viewpoints that aren't
absolutely. And I didn't adopt those viewpoints initially because I wanted to be contrarian, but I almost embrace it now, where it's like, if you want to call me whatever you want to call me, that's fine, and I almost embrace that term of being contrarian and against stuff, because it seems like most of the things that I've found valuable, most people haven't, and I feel like I'm ultimately proved right. So
I think referring to you in the hipster term was probably wrong, because I think a lot of times things kind of get generalized in that way and kind of put in that hipster category. But believe me, like, if you go to the Coterie, I feel strongly that that's like the hipster starter kit place to go.
Going out of their way to be different.
Yeah, and that's what I think too. Like, look,
sure,
a true hipster to me would kind of be like, you're against the grain a little bit, kind of, but you're not pretentious. You don't kind of advertise like it's almost like an act. That's how I feel about it.
You're identifying something that I actually agree with. When people are counterculture in a way where it is just as the counterculture is just as regimented and mainstream, that it's their own mainstream, and you, like, for example, like punk. If you want to say someone's a punk, like, punk rock or whatever, that has a very specific uniform, okay? But the idea of it right now being a punk, like in 1977 when punk was formed, that was formed organically. People wore that stuff because that was what was around. They put safety pins through their nose because that was what they had laying around, and this was like mainstream America. Exactly. Now people do that because it's a uniform. It's a costume. It's a thing that you put on to identify yourself with a certain group, and it's not any more get in line, boot step down the street as someone that wearing like an Izod shirt. You know what I mean?
Like, if you saw me walking down the street wearing a Brave shirt, wearing sandals, wearing khaki shorts, you would think, oh, an ex-jock, a meathead. But if you take time to get to know me, you know that I have levels to this shit. So if you see Rob wearing a Kangol hat and a flannel, you might think hipster or 90s alternative, but there's many more layers to him. He's like an onion.
He is an onion. He makes me cry.
Geez, only 10 minutes in, only tears.
For example, we recently went at the Coterie, and I don't know if that makes you cringe when I say that place by name or whatever.
Cool.
Okay, but when my brother and I went out, Sig, and you asked if they had anything domestic, the snobbish look that we looked like we were like trailer park boys with the way that guy looked at us. Like, he said all they had was PBR, and Sig goes, do you have anything as level up from PBR as domestic? And that guy looked at you like you were a peasant.
I'm not drinking donkey piss for $8 a glass.
Like, he just looked so down on you, and I'm like, dude, you've got a handlebar mustache, which I am impressed with, by the way. I am a connoisseur of facial hair.
Like his beard had a perm. It was the craziest thing.
And I wish it was almost like he wanted to tell us to go down to a local 7-Eleven and buy a 6-pack of like Bud or something.
I'll be back. I'll get the stroke.
Like, no, but that's just how I felt. I'm kind of like, that was a hipster to me. Look.
Right.
You can like whatever you want and be a hipster. I don't give a fuck. I'm not going to look down on you as like derogatory, but that's how I felt by my experience. That hipster looking down on me like I'm the problem. I'm like, whoa, chief.
Now, PBR is the perfect example of the statusy thing that is let's be clear. I've drank a lot of PBR in college. I'm sure that's where you probably drink most of it too.
I puked down the interstate on PBR.
I was a Busch Light guy, and Natty Light guy. He was a Keystone guy.
Sure. I'm a Bud Light guy.
And now he's a Bud Light.
PBR is no better and no worse than any of the things you just mentioned.
PBR is awful.
PBR is terrible. Yeah. It's the worst. But
like
hipsters drink it, and I remember being at a bar in Bloomington in college and having some girl who was one of these hipsters that you're talking about go on for 10, 15 minutes about, oh, it's union made, and that's why I support it, and it's not because everyone else likes it, and it's like, no, that is not true. You saw someone that is in your clique, and then you had to do it too, like a lemming.
But no, you're right. Like, look, I mean, people who go on those tangents about, look, you're drinking, like, when we drank Keystone in college, you could get 30 stones for 10 bones.
How I remember.
That stuff is like $16, $17 now, and people are still buying it. When I can get a case of Bud for $3 less, and you want to sit there and tell me, oh, I like the taste. Yeah. Nobody likes the taste. You're trying to be fucking cool and get the Keystone. Yeah. No,
it's the same reason people buy Evan Williams over Jack Daniels. It's cheaper. You're trying to get drunk. You're not trying to, like, sit back with some 3 Floyd.
I'm not sitting there going, this extra watered down Coors Light of Keystone tastes so much better. No.
Well, exactly. I had a disillusioning moment in college where have you heard of the red natty light or natural. It's just natty, and not light. You know what I mean?
Natty heavy.
Natty. Do you know what I'm talking
I've
about?
never seen it, but I know.
I've never even
heard
had
it.
it.
It's like a unicorn.
But yeah, exactly. It's like people were like, "Oh, I'm in Pennsylvania and I saw it," and blah blah blah, and it's still the same terrible beer. It doesn't matter. Like it's like, oh, good, it's not light, but it still tastes like urine.
It's the same thing with a Keystone. Was it Keystone Ice or Keystone Dark or something? It was in a black can.
It's just because you can't find it at the Speedway or whatever.
For a 19-year-old palate.
Yeah.
It's not sophisticated at all.
No, to be honest, as a freshman in college, you probably shouldn't like beer. Period.
Sure.
You're just trying to get drunk. You're force-feeding yourself to drink that stuff. Absolutely. I went there, started off my first semester with vodka and orange juice because I hated beer. Mm-hmm. This guy, Sig, shows up at my dorm room with a case of Stones. And he's like, we're drinking. And I'm like, I guess I am. And you force-feed yourself beer, and then that's how you acquire the taste.
Kombucha, vodka, yeah, all that stuff. Yeah, terrible, terrible liquor. I would never eat.
You can get the McCormick's half-gallon for like 10 bucks.
One thing that was big in college where we were was McCormick's gin. And people would buy Juicy Juice with their WIC checks and then get some fucking McCormick's gin, and we'd be high on the hog gin and juice, baby.
Yeah. I had any of that gin that year.
I went through a gin phase. But anyway, all right, so
that's all.
How do we start talking about this? Awesome. No, not all of it. Oh, hipsters, that's right. And I'd like to point out your beard with just a few modifications. I'm talking a little oil, little scaping. You could have a wonderful hipster beard.
Like a little, like, Hunger Games?
Yeah, I have oil, Rob. I take my facial hair very seriously.
Oh, excuse me. I don't mean to denigrate your care.
A couple weeks ago, I shaved off about a good 3 or 4 inches.
Oh, really?
This. I knocked it down. Yeah,
okay.
Because I was trying to I had this audit for my company I work for. This guy from Canada coming, and I was sitting in on a meeting with the bigwigs. Mm-hmm. I wanted to look respectable and like I was professional.
So you wore your Levi's and not your Wranglers?
I wore shorts and a shirt with sleeves. That's very uncommon for me. I usually rock the sleeveless, so I had to wear sleeves.
Okay. But anyway, if you wanted to switch sides, you wouldn't have to do that much work. Just I could hook you up.
You work on that buzz.
I have hipster friends. I do.
Oh yeah.
Excellent. Well,
I couldn't tell you their names, but I have some hipster friends.
It's just like when Donald Trump, he has, there's my African American.
They're out there.
They're out there. Yeah. My Mexican friends. You can't call them.
It's like saying how many black people you know. I have 3 black friends. No, that's you're racist.
Yeah, exactly. Get ready for some racist stuff from that person. But anyway, so like I said, I listen to you guys' show. I don't follow the day-to-day of sports, but there are things that you guys bring up that I think, man, I'd really like to chime in on those topics. So I did send you a few ideas. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about concussions in the last one. I don't know that we need to rehash it, and we've probably already said most of the things we need to say.
What show are you talking about, Rob?
The Sounding Off with Chap Sig.
Oh, that's right. The show we recorded prior. My apologies.
How natural was that?
Natural light.
Natty light. Anyway, so we don't need to talk about concussions. I think you're for them. I'm against them. We don't need to talk about it anymore. So.
You're for CTE?
Yeah, you guys are pro CTE. I'm against it. I think it's wrong. I'm like tell the truth. And
in the primary, I actually did pull the CTE the lever there.
Oh wow.
CTE,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't know I was all for guys eating shotgun shells and killing themselves. Yeah. But I'm glad I know.
It's a weird position to take.
It's not the shell. I feel like it's kind of the bullet. If you eat the shell, you'd be all right.
Yeah.
Valid point.
Anyway. Yeah. It's a weird position to take, but I'm not here.
Just if I can touch on a little bit because I don't know how your audience or how much they're into that or whatnot.
Go.
I think for one. There is a big move of people pulling their kids out of football.
Yep.
And I think that's a little premature. It's just a scare tactic.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a concussion just as well as falling down the stairs, especially as a child. Who knows how many concussions children have that go undiagnosed from taking bumps. Mm-hmm. So I think you're starting to see a movement of safer football and safer teachings of stuff, which I think will help eliminate. It's not going to eliminate the problem, but it'll help curb the problem.
Mm-hmm.
The media wants to run around with concussions in football and just like constantly throwing it down people's face. And for the person who isn't a sports fan, like yourself, you're not a diehard sports fan. You just kind of, you know they exist. But that's kind of
yes. I am aware of the existence of sports.
So based off the media, you would think that football is this horrendous thing that's going to lead to your death because you're going to shoot yourself because you have brain trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a misconception. Yes. It is horrible, and I think you're seeing the prior generations are the ones that are facing the issues with that right now. Sig and I have talked about it a couple times about the current procedure. You can always do better.
Sure.
But I just don't want, because anybody who's not a sports fan probably just thinks, oh, any football activity is going to get you a concussion, and that's probably not entirely fair to assume.
Sure. Yeah, and there's in previous incarnations, I mean, if you want to look back at, the 20s when they had the leather helmets. Yeah. My God, can you even imagine?
I think they banned it at the college level for a few years because there were so many deaths.
Yeah.
Well, for instance, they actually said, which I don't know how the evidence they would have for this is, that was also considered to be a safer era of football because they were aware of the limited protection that they had.
Sure.
So they kind of compare that almost to what rugby is now. I mean, when you're souped up in those pads and you got that helmet and you can run 4.4 speed, you run like a missile and drop somebody because you're young, dumb, and think you're untouchable. Mm-hmm. And you use your head. I mean, you're a missile.
Sure.
That's the issue. I mean, we've tried to make football so safe that we gave a false sense of security. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and I don't have a problem with adults, who understand the risks. I think that's an important part of it, and you have to consider how much they're getting paid too. I mean, they're getting paid to put themselves on the line, and part of the giant paychecks they're getting is that they are putting themselves in danger. It's hazard pay, like in the military, So
yeah, and that's been my whole stance in the last few months as we talked about this, is that I just want the NFL to have some transparency. If you can just come out and acknowledge that scientific studies over the past 20 or 30 years have created a direct link between brain trauma and football, and then say, here it is, boys, play at your own peril, I would have no problem with that. But I think that the NFL has tried to do smoke and mirrors for so long that it's become annoying for intelligent people to know that they're not being fully truthful to help their bottom line. That's my big problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a profit motive attached to it.
Well, I think, too, we are such a blood-hungry and violent-hungry country that there's a reason football has the money involved with it that it does. And the ratings, the football ratings are highest of any other sport because people are watching other people. People want to watch other men just bashing each other and the injuries and everything like that.
Absolutely.
We are bloodthirsty.
And I felt like the movie The Hunger Games, and the book was the book before it was the movie, but I felt like the author of that series was taking a backhanded stab at our culture. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's not that extreme in the make-believe world of Pan Am, but I think that you can draw this parallel that we depend on it for our pop culture, for our entertainment. And a lot of the average people don't care if Johnny, football player, has spaghetti noodles for brains.
Exactly. And there's I don't even think it's I think it's bigger than what you're saying. You're saying it's in our country, and it's true. In America is where football came from or whatever. But I think it's in human nature. It's just that we live in a society where there's not a lot of spaces to be that violent or see that violence. Mm-hmm. So I think UFC is kind of the same way. When I see UFC, I personally I can't watch it. It just makes me sick. I can't watch people just beaten to the pulp like that. It does nothing for me. But I know that for other people, they have something inside them that excites them, and I'm not faulting them for that. That's part of who they are. If I had that, I would want an outlet for it too. So I'm glad there is a place that makes it okay for that to happen.
You talk about in other places in the world and everything like that. There are a lot more extremes than football or the UFC
absolutely.
We have. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
There are still places where they fight to the death. Mm-hmm. So, but as far as the UFC. For me, and Sig is a casual viewer, he'll watch pay-per-views when I get them and everything like that. But for me, it all comes down to the competition. There is no better competition than one-on-one, man or woman, fighting each other, as long as it's the same sex. I don't condone the men fighting the women or whatever.
I mean, look, there's a reason why there's websites like Live Leak. People want to see, you know what Live Leak is? That's where like people upload murders and.
I don't want to see that shit.
I mean, but there's a reason why it exists. I know that's extreme, but those types of websites get lots of hits because people want to see the ogreish stuff.
Everything exists for a reason. But with the UFC, that's just the ultimate competition to me. It's one-on-one. There's no teams. It's literally who's the best. Mm-hmm. In this matchup, and that's strictly from the competition. There's stuff I see that makes me cringe. If I watch a football game where a bone breaks, I'm not, fuck yeah, that's awesome. No, I'm like, oh God. I start seeing the instant replays and I want to walk away. I can't watch that shit.
Right.
It's all about the competition for me. Mm-hmm. I understand the risks involved in the injuries that come with it, but there are people who are like, oh, watch his leg snap. I'm like, no, that's gross. Mm-hmm.
Nah, dude.
Sure. Well, and there are people like I remember, watching as a kid, those big open field hits in football. It's the same way. It's like you immediately hear like from the crowd the instant reaction, But now that we know what we know, that's like people, they know what comes after that, so they're a little less.
Suffered one.
Yeah.
You know what that guy's about to go through.
Exactly.
You can watch a guy now in any sport. If you see a guy go limp, like he'll get hit, you just see him.
Or
It's
get
like,
up and have no idea where he is.
He gets the deads. I mean, he just goes limp, and you're just like, oh my God.
Right.
Like,
right.
That's the worst. You see it, not just in football, The big thing for me, and you say you're a baseball fan when you're a kid, where high inside hitting the helmet, a guy getting drilled in the head, there is nothing that like makes me tighten up and get so sick more a guy catching a fastball in the helmet.
Projectile thrown at you.
Man, it just makes me cringe.
Yeah.
To see the guy, I just sit there watching. I was like, please move, please move, please show me that you're not dead.
Right, exactly. Josh here, when we worked together, I think we should point out that he won several of his awards for a series about concussion. So we have a pretty knowledgeable person here. You want to explain kind of what you found when you did those stories? Just encapsulate that real quick, because it was a really great series that you did.
Yeah, I think that you have a problem. Thank you for bringing that up. I think you have even at the local level, you have a problem with coaches and players and doctors, because coaches that are have coached football for a long time, they love the sport, and they're going to. It's a self-serving prophecy type of thing. It's the same reason why you see that your friends on Facebook that are cops show pro-police videos. It's the same reason why you'll have a coach of a local high school say that football gets a bad rap. It's not as violent, and concussions are much more isolated. When I feel like that's not true necessarily. And then you have the player, the 18-year-old knucklehead kid that doesn't care how many times they get their brains busted, and if it means that they'll have to take a ride in a helicopter to the hospital, I think that most of those kids, because they don't understand the future ramifications of what they're doing to themselves at a young age. So you have that, and then you have the trainers who have to monitor that and make decisions that they know are going to be unpopular in the locker room and with the coaches. And then also the thing that was the most surprising to me is that the medical professionals in big towns, they don't agree on certain aspects of concussions, like second concussion syndrome. If you come back too soon from the first one and get a second one, the theory is that you're really opening yourself up to brain bleeds and death. And
did you tell me that you interviewed one doctor who wasn't even sure if CTE was real? Didn't you tell me that or something like that? There was something like he wasn't fully convinced the second concussion syndrome was a real thing, and I that was baffling. He's a medical doctor, a local team doctor.
That's crazy.
So the thing I took away from it the most after my research was that it's not just isolated to the NFL. It's a problem at the local level with coaches, doctors, and players as well.
I have a cousin who plays junior high football, and there was a kid that he played with. He missed the whole season because he got 2 concussions in practice before games even started. He missed the whole season and missed half of basketball season because of 2 concussions in a span of like a month. So to say that it's just the high school level, I mean, this is trickling down into your 10, 11, 12-year-olds and probably even younger.
Sure.
Now, Rob, do you have any kids?
Yeah, I have a son. He's almost 2.
Okay. If your son wants to play football, what do you do?
Absolutely not.
Not going to let him play. Not even a conversation about it.
Nope. Sorry.
Strictly based off the fear of the injuries?
Well, I don't ever want to go to a football game for kids, first of all. I've been to those. I'm kidding. No, most of it is based off of, safety. And I would not ever let him do several sports that, my wife is into horses. She would want him to do horseback riding. I don't even know if I want him to do that. Neck injuries, Christopher Reeve, RIP. I have a real problem with it. And I know that the more we find out, it seems crazy to me. I'm sorry. I know there's people that have their kids in football, and I have friends that have their kids in football, and I could never do it. I could never do it, man.
I played football all the way through college, and my first child is a girl, so hopefully, I never even have to broach that subject there. But if I have a boy, I hope they don't want to play, because I don't want to have that conversation.
Absolutely. Man.
No, okay, you don't have a son. I don't have any kids yet, and Rob, your son's young enough. Let's say in the next 10 years that there are gigantic strides in safety and a drastic number of concussions are prevented or reduced. Does that change your mind, or do you still have the cold, hard stance that period done, not going to be an option?
I think that you're placing a little more credence in the idea that the game can be made safer. I think that, and I think you probably ran across this in your research, the main thing we're worried about is the brain sloshing inside the head and hitting up against the skull. That's
the brain's rebounding off its own skull.
So you can make the padding around that better, but just the force of going and then stopping immediately, and then the brain inside continuing to move while the outside is stopped and then coming up against it. I don't know how you stop that short of just not going as fast. I don't really know if there's a way to mitigate for that. So I don't really, I mean, that's the way I've had explained to me. I mean, that Josh and I have talked about this before. I think that's the way it works. I don't know if there is a way to make it safer. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'm willing to be proven wrong, but I don't know if like that problem doesn't seem solvable to me.
My understanding is there are helmets that are being created that can reduce concussions by 60%.
Okay.
So now something like that, and Sig and I have talked about that. Why is the NFL not investing in this company and being like, hey, we want those helmets right now? So my whole thing is, in any sport, there's going to be danger. There is going to be potential to get hurt.
Absolutely.
Your kid could be getting on a chair to get something out of the cabinet, fall, bump his head, got a concussion, and he never put on a football.
My son almost kills himself on a daily basis. So Josh knows.
I think my fear is we're going to start pussifying America a little bit more than what it already is, and putting these kids in bubbles, and it starts at football. Yeah. But there's so many other places that it can get hurt, especially in sports, that we're going to start. I mean, that's my concern.
Toughness is a relative term, and I don't think that you have to be a barbarian to be tough. But I understand that the concern that we are creating softer physically and emotionally in terms of kids with the things we've done with our society.
And I guess let me preface that you don't have to do sports to determine your toughness or whatever. But I feel like. You even played baseball as a kid. Would you say that you got good values from playing sports?
Yeah, and there's things to be learned from sports, and I absolutely think it is a career, could be a career, but character building exercise for a lot of people, and a lot of people get a lot of things out of it. I certainly did. I can't say I didn't get anything out of it. I certainly did. And yeah, I had friends from it. It was something to do. You learn about teamwork. You learn about working together with other people. So there's things to be learned. And you're right, danger is all around us. I've learned that with a child. I used to laugh at people that had leashes for their children, and I'm considering buying one right now. So
I guess I just have a long-term fear of sports on the decline because of the fear of injury.
Okay.
And I don't want a world in a bubble.
I understand that, and I actually agree with you because all right, so you want to go back to hipster and hippie and all that. I am a feminist. I think that women should be given equal opportunity to men. I think there's a patriarchy in place in our country that is oppressive, but I will say that I have known, and I'm not going to name any names because they might be listening, but I have known hippie parents who have had boys who have not allowed those boys in a healthy way to express their masculinity because they're fighting so hard against that patriarchy and so hard for feminism that they end up tamping down a natural, healthy part of their son's, personality, that it ends up having bad consequences for them as adults. So I do think that what we're seeing now is an over backlash to something that I think was and continues to be a real problem, but there has to be a way for, and I have a son, so this is something I think about too. I want him to be able to be a man in a way that is healthy and natural, but not oppressive to other people. Does that make sense to you?
I'm glad you mentioned the feminism thing because the Chap Sig show is very woman-friendly.
I appreciate that about you guys. I appreciate that.
And we'll go ahead and put it in the sports side. Equality and equal opportunity to me can kind of be different. Women, like the pay disparities are big. Like, if you look at it in sports, the average WNBA player makes $35,000 a season.
Yeah.
The average, what's the minimum SIG for NBA? It's got to be $500,000.
It's at least that.
At least $500,000 for a man. So if you're a bench player, never get minutes, you're making $500,000. The MVP of the WNBA can make $35,000. So, and these women are going overseas to make millions of dollars. Yep. So these third world countries are valuing women's sports more than we are.
Right.
I think that should be a big hindrance to people. Like, they need to really think about this. But also, too, even the fight on feminism and trying to get equality for women, the media in this country as a whole, we sexualize every female athlete.
It's true.
The ones you know about tend to be attractive.
Good point. That's very true.
If they're not attractive, you don't know them.
Mm-hmm.
I made the comparison on the Indy 500 recently. There was a woman riding. There was a woman driving in the 500. I didn't know about it till the day of the race. I googled her. She wasn't Danica Patrick attractive. She wasn't overly pretty. And I'm like, well, right there. That's why. I mean, really, if it'd been anybody who had supermodel looks, you'd be hearing about it all week long, leading up to the race.
Right.
Yeah.
So we are still sexualizing women, and I don't know how do you, at a young age, especially like the high school level or whatever, I don't know if you can change that mentality. I really don't know how you change an immature mind into thinking a woman is your equal or a female is your equal. Because hormones are just your mind. You're not... A lot of 16, 17-year-old kids are just trying to get ass. They're not thinking, oh, this person's my equal, honestly. And I don't know how we change that.
But you're also a product of your environment. If you grow up in an environment where women are subservient to men, that's the way you're going to treat them going forward, too. So I think if you can gradually move towards that equality, and you're going to have the sexualization of women, you're going to have the masculinization of men, it's not going to go away tomorrow. But I think that if we can help with little things like equal pay and having women executives, I don't want to see women playing football. That'd be dangerous. I mean, because there are some limitations to it. I mean, the average man is stronger than the average woman, but in terms of like their mind and the way we perceive them as leaders, I feel like we have a long way to go.
You have to do you take clearly there are physical differences, and so what you're pointing out on the mind and the intelligence, everything like that, I 100% agree. I think as a society, we need to hold every aspect of our country and civilization that is sexualizing women and making them feel inferior to men. We need to hold them accountable. We almost walk around like, oh, feminism. Well, I'm busy over here. Like we want to chant it on the weekends, but we're not really holding anybody accountable for the way they handle this stuff. There are a lot of attractive women in sports, but they're not always the best athlete. So they're strictly being used for their looks. And that's the way it's going to be, and it needs to change.
Who was I'm going to get this wrong, but who was the tennis player in the late 90s, early 2000s? Was
it Kournikova? Anna Kournikova?
Well, wasn't she like number 268th in the world?
She cracked the top 100 at some point. Did she ever?
Yeah. I don't know.
But she never won anything that had good competition.
She was the only female tennis player I knew for a long time. She was
very attractive.
And there were there were better tennis players that I had no idea.
Than finals.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's just how
exactly. So that's a perfect example of what you're talking about.
Is a decent player. He's won some Grand Slams.
The female player of the WNBA, Delanova, or
Deladon.
Okay, she is a very attractive woman. She is 6'5". She won the MVP last year.
A chicken ball.
That is, you won an award. You're the best player in the league, and you happen to be attractive. You're a triple threat. Congratulations.
Right.
But the other women who aren't, nobody knows. Who was the runner-up to the MVP? Nobody knows.
Right.
But so we need
Brittany Griner, probably,
who was very manly looking, but I just
extreme opposite of Deladon.
I just think we need to do a better effort at bringing the women up to our equaling the playing field for women in all aspects,
right?
And having feminism be something that should just be natural and not something we have to preach for and fight for.
Right.
When it's convenient, I guess.
And I don't think that there's any value in pretending there's no differences between men and women, because obviously there are. Like you said, I mean, men are in general, present company included, bigger than women, and stronger. So, although I did wrestle a lot of women when I was a wrestler, because they were the only ones in my class. I'd like to point that out. But it's like it's kind of like with race. You can't pretend that everybody is the same, but you have to give people the opportunity to achieve based on their merit and not just discount people because of this factor or that factor. So anyway,
I'll tell you this. That's a good point you make. Like the thing, I came from a town that was all white, very racist. One of the things I'm most proud about for myself is not any awards I won or not, being a cum laude graduate from this school or that school or running in these circles or that circles. I'm proud of myself that when I meet someone, the first thing that comes in my brain is, oh, they're black, oh, they're Latin. Like, I'm really proud of myself that I've been able to not do that anymore.
Yeah.
Not that I was ever really racist, but when it's just ingrained in you because of the culture in which you live, and that's the same thing with the feminist movement. Like, people don't want to hear it because they're not going to give it any real estate in their brain because of the culture in which they're raised.
Yeah. And you guys were talking a little bit before, and I respect the fact that you guys do stick up for issues like that. especially because you guys are so foul-mouthed, and I respect it more because, let me tell you, I have been around very manipulative people who say all the right things, they know all the things to say, but they are terrible and just rotten to the core. You guys, I think, have a good heart, and your hearts are in the right place. It's just that certain people are put off by using certain words and referring to things in certain ways. Give me any day of the week somebody that says real stuff and is just unfiltered, that has their heart in the right place, over some smooth, manipulative person that actually is rotten to the core, but they know all the right things to say. They know all the little, keywords to get around. Because those people are the ones you have to watch out for, man. Those are the snakes in the grass. So, anyway.
That's your ESPN, by the way.
Yeah.
ESPN's going to tell you everything that's going to profit them and make them look good.
Or your presidential nominee.
But we do appreciate those kind of words.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So much, yeah.
No,
I remember when we did an episode, somebody texted me or whatever. It was like, never would have pegged you as a feminism or as a feminist or whatever. And I'm like, look, if you want to talk,
you get razzed for it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What?
No, you get razzed for it.
Yeah.
Where we're from.
And I'm like, why? Because I think women are equal. Because I think my wife is just as qualified to do anything that I'm going to do.
Shit, my wife is far more qualified than everything.
Like, your wife is better than you at everying. So,
it's true.
But
other than mowing the yard.
right. My wife is better than me at everything except manual labor. But no, someone's like, oh, I never pegged you as a feminist. And I'm like, 5 years ago, could I have told you that's how I was going to be? Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. But their opinions should change as they get older, because you should be more wiser to seeing how the world is.
Absolutely.
Someone who has had the same mentality now that they did 10 years ago, that scares me.
That's a good
because
point.
you're not growing.
Yeah.
And I look at kids now, 18, 19 years old, and I hear the shit that comes out of their mouth, and I kind of get embarrassed because I'm like, I remember when I said that. Thought that.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm like, I hope to God you grow out of this, because if you don't, you're gonna make this world that we're trying to make better. You're gonna slow us down. You're gonna slow down our progress.
I'm going to do something I don't ever usually do, but I'm going to defend Hillary Clinton right now. She gets razzed for being inconsistent, flip-flopping, being cynically watching the polls and changing her position.
So for being a politician. She's getting harassed for being a politician.
Precisely.
Okay.
What do we want people to do? All right, if we think they're wrong, do we want them to continue being wrong, or do you want them to change? If someone changes, shouldn't you give them, even if it's for a cynical reason, even if the only reason that they change is because they see everyone else changing, they're like, well, I better keep up with the times, isn't that better than somebody, like you're saying, that sticks their flag in the sand and they're like, I have this position now and I'm never going to change it? You have to realize that what do you want people to do? You want people to grow and change and gather new information and take it in and maybe change. So being inconsistent, yes, it's nice to be consistent like Bernie does, and I'm not knocking him at all. Obviously, I like a lot of things about him, and he's been on the right side for a long time, which allows him to do that. But, let's give people a break when they do make progress. And that's all I mean. Like, that flip-flop thing doesn't, I don't really count that as a negative always.
Well, think about this, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing that we try to promote is, believe in something, be true to your convictions, and just have a base to stand on.
Right.
I think people who do that get that and run with it. Mm-hmm. And then it's okay to be wrong, but they'll never accept that. It's like they want you to have a belief and stick to it, but never say you're wrong. It's almost sad. Like we try to tell these people, it's okay to be wrong, but nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to be like, I was on the wrong side for the last 5-10 years or even longer. Nobody wants to do that. They just dig their heels in and try to manipulate it in some way. And you're right with what you're saying, especially when it comes to politicians. I think Trump is a horrible example because that motherfucker will flip-flop
in the same sentence.
So flip-flop, say Old Navy with that guy.
But you're right. Mitt Romney ran into the problem against Obama when he ran, when somebody asked him, like, oh, you flipped on this. And he goes, I realized I was wrong.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do? Do you want me to stick with my wrong viewpoint?
Sure.
And there were people who were ridiculing him, calling him a flip-flopper, and I'm with you. It's like, you admitted you're wrong. And when you're in a position where the last 20 years of your life is being reviewed, you can't expect someone at 20 to think the same way as 30, or the same person at 30 to think the same way at 50. Like, you're going to grow. Your opinions are going to change. And that's fine.
Should be.
But we forget to acknowledge that. We just want, nobody wants to acknowledge that, hey, your opinion's going to change. It's okay.
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, the other sports topic I was thinking about, because I heard you guys talk about this a little bit, is PEDs. Now, you guys, I hear you talk about Bash Brothers, we're talking about before, RIP to that duo and their credibility. But what is your problem with PEDs, like, as a fan? Like, don't you like it that, like, okay, if you gave me PEDs, I couldn't do, I might get bigger or something, or I might, whatever might shrink, but, whatever happens.
Your hands and your head would grow.
Yeah, there you go.
But your
big head. So, just big head. So,
one of them.
Yeah. So, okay. So, if you gave me PEDs, I'm not going to hit a baseball better because that was not a skill I had in the first place. All right. And I see a lot of people, and I understand you want to keep the game natural and whatever, but okay, first of all, let's take it back to Babe Ruth times. All right, if people want to put up, and I don't mean to make a straw man argument because you guys haven't made this and I haven't heard you say it, but people that are against PEDs say, back in the day I like it when the game was pure and it was just this and it was just that. It was just the way, old-fashioned, the way it used to be. All right, Babe Ruth didn't play against any black people. Let's put that out there first. As I understand it from my rusty baseball knowledge, the home run, what counted as a home run, was not as long as it is today, right? You only have to hit it outfield right now.
Much shorter, the corner is much deeper in center.
Yeah, exactly. So those have changed. The ball used to be huge, right? It used to be like a softball size, right? Wasn't the circumference of the ball bigger?
No, I think the materials in which it was made would have changed. Like today we have a cork center, and that didn't happen until like the 60s or 70s.
Right.
It's called the light ball era.
Okay.
Because what they played and called the dead ball area was just yarn. And now we have
it was actually heavy. It was
actually harder.
It was harder to hit that. That's why dead ball was light ball.
I guarantee they didn't test for anything. They didn't know how. I guarantee probably some strange shots were being given of questionable medical material. Snake oil salesmen were, I'm sure, lining up out the door. So I'm sure if Babe Ruth had, yeah, exactly, medicinal even. Yeah. People. I'm sure if Babe Ruth had access to PEDs, he would have taken them. All right. My thing is, I think, and I'm just going to put my opinion out there, and you guys can say whatever you want to about it, because I don't know anything about sports, and I'm an idiot in this case, so I'm just from an outsider's perspective. What if we just said, okay, you can do all the PEDs you want, everything. You have to admit it, and we have to put it on every scroll underneath your name every time we see you on TV. It's going to be on the back of the baseball card, and everyone's going to know this forever and all times. You can do it, but you have to be honest about it. What is your problem with that system?
Let me just kind of go back to what you're talking about in the early part of the game. Let's remember too, back in the Babe Ruth era, there wasn't the money involved that there is now.
Right.
So the initiative to take anything back in the day was slim to none, probably closer to none.
You have to take into consideration inflation. I mean, Babe Ruth signed a $100,000 contract with the Yankees, which he
was paid more than the president at the time, right?
If you were to do the inflation numbers, that's healthy, happy money. But anyway.
But my point is then too, he didn't play against any black athletes. I've said that for years.
No, I
agree with you. Some of the greatest baseball players ever never made it to the bigs. They played in the Negro leagues.
Exactly.
So, but as far as what you're saying now, and I guess my standpoint is, I like to think of things as fair. If you're going to draw up the guidelines and you're going to create the sport, I want it to be fair across the board. And when you start to cheat or somebody's taking stuff like that, you are now not following within my guidelines, and you've tarnished my game. Now, what you're trying to say is, it'd be unnatural. If everybody had the permission to take the PEDs and all that stuff like that, it's unnatural. And as a whole, would it be better for the game? Probably. I would say so.
Wasn't it exciting when Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were hitting all those home runs?
Yeah.
After the strike, wasn't that so exciting back in the 90s? When I was into baseball, that was huge. That was probably the peak of my liking baseball, actually. That
was the saving grace. Coming off the strike, you had the home run chase.
But now everyone's like, they tarnished that, and they took it, now all that's asterisk, So.
I touched on this a couple episodes ago. On our show, I love watching a perfect game.
Sure.
If you're showing me a pitcher who's out there pitching perfect game, there's only been like 23 of them in the history of baseball. Like, that to me is great. A casual fan wants to see 6 home runs hit a game, and they want to see a score that resembles a football score instead of, a 1-0. I can appreciate the game for what it is. I think there are less and less people like me in the world that really traditionally love the game for the way it is. But from a business sense, and ratings, absolutely. In professional sports across the board, let's give you the PEDs and run rampant. But that can also lead to, if something like that were to go into football, it's even more dangerous because you've already got testosterone-driven players. I mean, it's just, I get what you're saying, and it probably would better sports from a business aspect. But as a historian of the game and just the love of sports and fair competition, that's why I'm strictly against it 100%.
I understand that too, but okay, let's go over, and I'm not, you guys are going to fill me in on the particulars, but what is it the cortisone shots that they get, football players? No, not cortisone, what is it called? It's like some shot that you get that helps you heal faster.
There's HGH, human growth hormone.
But that's legal, right? You can't, no it's not legal.
Not anymore.
Was it? When did that change?
They had, because you have the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency that has all these banned substances that athletes can't take. But for the longest time in Major League Baseball, they hadn't banned steroids, they hadn't banned androstenedione, they hadn't banned human growth hormone, and I can speak for Mark McGwire, not Sosa. I'm not sure exactly what Sosa was doing, but at the time, Mark McGwire had a bottle of androstenedione sitting in his locker, and a reporter asked him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, that's what I take. It wasn't a banned substance in the major leagues." And McGwire didn't feel like he'd done anything wrong.
That and creatine, which is a very popular thing used now.
Thinking of that, yeah. And didn't Kobe go to Germany and get some thing?
That's another thing. Kobe went and got experimental treatment, which isn't legal in the United States. He went to Germany and got it done on his knees, helped with the healing and everything.
But that's not illegal, right?
He had some stem cells shot in his knee.
But that's not illegal, right?
Nobody's going to leave Kobe out of the Hall of Fame because of it.
Okay.
Based on...
But that's an artificial help that he would not have gotten anyway. And I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Let's say you're gonna go to work, but you got a really bad headache. You take some ibuprofen. You just took performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
So it's really however you want.
But I'm not against performance-enhancing drugs. So you're pushing against an open door here.
Yeah, I get it.
Let me just say this. I understand both sides of the argument you guys are having here. I don't like that I'll forever have to wonder who was taking what and what records are genuine and what aren't. My bigger problem is guys who lied about it and vilified media members because they reported.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. So Lance Armstrong is a monster. We can say that now for sure. He sued people that said the truth for telling the truth, and he said that they were liars. So that's a guy that's despicable.
Mark McGwire never lied about anything. He pled the fifth in his congressional hearings when he had to speak in front of it, and he was honest about it at the time, and then pled the fifth. So, but guys like Barry Bonds, guys like Rafael Palmeiro. The guys that lied about it and were dickheads to the media and congressional panels, that pisses me off more than the cheating itself.
You make a good point about wondering what is legit as far as the record books go and everything like that, and I'm with you 100%. We like to think of the game as pure and natural, and to sit there and wonder and be like, well, they started in the 60s but finished in the late 70s, early 80s. Did at any point in time, did they start taking something? Mike Schmidt, Hall of Fame third baseman for the Phillies, openly talked about back in the day before a lot of ballparks had lights, all the day games and everything like that, especially when he had to go to Wrigley. He's like, man, he goes, when you're coming off a night game and you got to play a 1 o'clock start at Wrigley, you don't get into Chicago until 3 o'clock in the morning. He's like, I take greenies and amphetamines and all that stuff to keep me awake. Those are banned substances. Those are considered PEDs. But nobody batted an eye because it was the culture. It was everybody was doing it. So, just as a traditionalist and a lover of a natural, clean game, that's where I stand. My personal preference was if I was a commissioner, I would ban everything that could be considered performance-enhancing drug. If I was a business owner and I was trying to profit and make my game as popular as it could be, absolutely. You have to consider what is the safest way to allow these players to use PEDs. Look, here's the thing. People take PEDs because they work. And the money involved. If you're right on the cusp, we'll use baseball, we'll just keep using baseball as an example. If you're a AAA ball player and you're just on the cusp of making the majors, but if you take some PEDs and that gets you up to the big leagues and you get a $10 million contract a year, of course you're going to do it. I mean, this is a business and this is a dream.
And that's one thing I thought was interesting with the episode where you talk about was the guy that was a baseball player that got caught using, probably a couple, but then he still gets paid for the days that he's suspended. His contract still keeps going or something?
You don't get paid.
You don't get paid?
No, you don't get paid. When you get suspended.
What isn't it if you play a certain number of games a year? Isn't that what I heard you say?
No, what it is I think what you're referring to is Nelson Cruz, who he got suspended 50 or 100 games. He got popped twice, actually, for PEDs. And then he got a monster contract afterwards.
Okay.
So he actually got... You cheated, your numbers are tainted, but a team gave you $20 million a year knowing that you're one drug test away from being banned from baseball for life.
Sure.
So...
Okay.
But now the whole aspect of that is, too, if a player gets suspended, they're on PEDs, it's not like the team gets to keep that money. The team still has to pay that money, and they forfeit it to the Major League Baseball.
I see.
So,
okay, so they're still out the money.
You're still out the money.
I get it. Okay. So, well, to pivot to a related but not really subject, Pete Rose. Give me your thoughts. Hall of Fame, should he be let in? I mean, this was an argument I had when I was growing up. Now, okay, so first, one thing clarify for me. Did he ever bet against his team? He did. We don't know.
He says no.
He says no. He only bet for his team.
To win, he says.
If he's telling the truth, I think, what's the problem? If you bet on yourself to win, isn't that what you're trying to do anyway?
It's one of those unwritten rules. You don't bet on baseball.
So it's an unwritten rule. It's not an actual rule.
Actually, there's a lot of clubhouses that used to have signs that say you don't bet on baseball.
Really?
No, it's an automatic ban if you get caught betting on the game you play.
So,
didn't you see him talk once?
Yeah.
With him,
Oh, okay, cool.
Which was really good. I think Pete Rose is an amazing baseball player, and he, a man of character. He may not be. Pete Rose is a liar, and that has been proven.
Okay.
So, as much as you want to look at this decrepit, kind of older man, the all-time hits king, and sit there and go, man, I want to believe you. You have a track record of lying. So, I really... He was recently up to get his suspension or his ban from baseball removed, but what was it, Sig? The time frame of which he was still betting on baseball within like 2 years ago or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, I used to really get on a soapbox and rail for them to let Pete Rose in. I used the example of Ty Cobb, how horrible of a human being.
That guy was a monster.
A horrible human being he was. And then, Rob Manfred, the new commissioner of baseball, was willing to sit down with Pete and discuss his lifetime ban and potentially getting it lifted. And, Pete didn't learn his lesson. He told the new commissioner that he was still betting on baseball. And you can't trust a guy who's betting on baseball, whether he's betting for his team to win or not, a compulsive gambling addict. Yeah. You cannot trust them to be your manager, to be anything in terms of a managerial role with your organization. So I used to rail real hard for it, but now I'm to the point where, Pete, you were a great player. There are remnants of you in the Hall of Fame. You are not a Hall of Fame inductee per se, but you didn't learn your lesson, and you're in your 70s now. I feel a lot less sorry for the man than I did maybe 5-10 years ago.
Here's the thing that his lifetime ban has not allowed. It has not allowed him to be put in the Hall of Fame as an individual. He does not have a bust in the Hall of Fame with his face. He is not allowed to be employed by any Major League Baseball team.
Oh, wow.
Is he allowed to come and... If he wanted to come to spring training and do a clinic or something, if a team invited him to come do that, if with permission, he could do that. The Reds are putting him in their Hall of Fame officially. Which, if you've ever been,
that's their own Hall of Fame.
That's their own Hall of Fame.
That's not the baseball Hall of Fame.
No, it's their own Hall of Fame, but it might as well be the Pete Rose Hall of Fame because I've been there. When they first built that stadium, there was nothing but Pete Rose stuff in there.
Right.
So, but now they are now officially allowed to put him in based on permission. Like, look, his record is still in the Hall of Fame. It says Pete Rose with the most hits and all the records and everything in the World Series. Like, he's recognized in the Hall of Fame. So at this point in time, I'm not going to advocate let it back to baseball because of the fact that it's not. I mean, he hasn't learned his lesson.
Yeah, I understand that.
Sorry, but no, they did I can't remember. It was a few years ago. They had polled like 1,000 people or whatever. If you could be the MLB commissioner for one day, what would you do? Like 89% of them said they'd put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's fair enough. That kind of pivots to another thing that I wanted to talk about. I didn't put it on the list, but it is sports related. Don't worry. So this, what do you call it? The side betting that people are doing with the leagues. That's like
fantasy.
Not fantasy. The daily. Okay. All right. So they currently, and maybe this is going to change, but they're under fire because people say it's a difference between a game of skill and a game of chance. Is that? Am I understanding that correctly? The gambling laws are such that you have to prove that it's not like
some states it's illegal to gamble, but so if I get on the computer in Indiana and it's illegal to gamble in Indiana, but their offices are in New York.
Right, but
they're saying no.
But they carve out an exception for like churches that do bingo and things like this because it's like, you know what I mean? It's like they allow some gambling but not others. Now, what do you guys think about that? Because that's gambling and the leagues are very involved in these things. They're investors and whatnot.
I do DraftKings. I do the daily.
I think I heard you mention that over the podcast.
And here's the thing. The whole problem and why this is under fire is because the government's not getting their cut. That is exactly what it is. You could go and you could gamble all day long in all these states through DraftKings, which is based out in California, and the state is not getting their cut of any money that you win. Mm-hmm. So that's what it all came down to. And you saw this trickle-down effect where all these states, it started out on the West Coast, they just all started like dominoes to fall to stop this. And, and that's all they want. They want to regulate it. They want their piece of the pie. And that's fine. I get that. But you have all these... The Major League Baseball, they have an exclusive deal with DraftKings. The NFL is a team-by-team. Some do DraftKings, some do... what's the other one? FanDuel. So it's just... The fantasy football, fantasy sports in general is exploding, and there's money to be won. But for me, I know people will say it's a complete chance, but for me, you have to know what you're doing. Rob, if you went and did it, it's completely 100% chance for you to win money.
Right. But wasn't there a scandal where somebody from one of the, I forget which one it was, either FanDuel or what the other one?
FanDuel was an employee
or something, but he had insider information.
No, he didn't. They alleged him to have inside. They did a big, because here's the thing, FanDuel and DraftKings do their scoring a little differently. Okay. And so they were trying to say that this guy had inside analytics. He had, all that stuff. Okay. They did like a full 2-month investigation. Independent counsel came in and did all that stuff. They're like, no, this guy had nothing different than what Joe Blow down the street would have had.
But as an employee, he wasn't allowed to profit from it.
He worked for FanDuel, played on DraftKings.
Right, that was the thing. It was the other company.
They didn't have anything in place at the time. Okay. Once that happened, FanDuel and DraftKings said, "You can't. If you're employed by us, you cannot participate in daily fantasy sports and make money." So that, from their standpoint, that was probably just an oversight that they didn't think about. And so, when it became a big story, they just went, okay, across the board, you cannot participate in this, which is fine. They should have done it in the first place.
This is a larger topic at large that I think that it kind of delves into economic development. You have some factions of the government that want to obstruct every single portion of anything that can be construed as economic development. And that's why I'm a big proponent of, if people want to use their disposable income to bet on sports, but they're not an athlete, they're not an employee, let them. If people want to buy marijuana and you can tax it, I was out in Colorado recently, and I cannot believe how much of the local economy is driven by marijuana sales. It is unbelievable, but it's awesome. So why are we trying to obstruct economic development in an era where we're seeing these industry jobs just die on the vine? It pisses me off.
That's a good point.
It's not going away. It's actually growing even more and more. I don't do... I just do the football. I've got my brother-in-law who does literally daily contests. He's in basketball, baseball. He's in shit every single day. I do the football. That's what I feel most confident in. That's what I feel I can get the most success in. So,
nice to know.
Yeah. Thanks for talking about that. I'm trying to think if there's any other sports topics that you guys talk about. I wanted to talk about sports movies. I kind of can't believe you haven't seen Breaking Away, but
right? You went to IU, you know all about
I was wearing a little 500 shirt just the other day, but yeah, that's a classic.
It's got some good stars in it too.
One of you guys want to give me a copy?
I have it, man. I'll give it to you.
I bet it's on Netflix.
Oh yeah. Anyway, there was a couple you guys didn't mention that I thought was an interesting omissions. Jerry Maguire. You think you guys didn't mention Jerry Maguire?
Jerry Maguire.
I like Jerry Maguire.
Well, I was basing off a list. There was a top 25 list, and there was a lot of movies, and I was like, where the fuck are they? They're living them off.
Yeah. Blue Chips.
Blue Chips is such an underrated movie. That movie is so good.
Nolte.
Nick Nolte,
man. So good.
Matt Nover from the Hoosiers.
Yeah.
I
agree with you. There's only one Sandlot in my mind.
Absolutely.
There's no sequels.
One of my top 10s, easily.
Absolutely.
Top 5.
Hoosiers. What was you guys had a different opinion on?
I think Hoosiers is overrated.
Overrated. In what way? Why do you think it's overrated? Is it because it's not close enough to the real story?
I think Hoosiers as being most polls will have that as the number 1 or number 2 sports movie of all time. I think it's a little too high. Do I think it's a top 5, top 10? I agree. But just to say that's the epitome. For me, I like Rudy more than Hoosiers. just my natural inclination, I like Rudy more than Hoosiers. Josh is looking at me like I'm dead to him now.
High school basketball in Indiana is a religion, and you come from a basketball hotbed,
Sure.
Bedford and Bloomington
David
and those
Bailey.
areas, in Evansville. Like basketball is the second religion down there to those
absolutely.
people. And having covered it for a very long time in this state, and I played a little basketball, but it's a special thing. I know the Notre Dame football is special to people in this part of the world too, but there's just something extremely special to be a Hoosier native and to be involved in high school basketball.
Let me be clear. I grew up loving basketball. I didn't give up on the NBA until probably like 2003, 2004. Like I love
weeks ago.
I love IU basketball.
Lead it.
I will play basketball any opportunity I get. Just if strictly from a movie aspect.
You want to get dunked on by Sigler?
The movie aspect, Hoosiers does not resonate with me the way like Rudy.
That's cool.
Or even Field of Dreams does.
Yeah.
So you are dead to me.
I'm trying to think of some others, but yeah, you covered most of them. But I thought there was some omissions or whatever. One other sports thing I want to talk about is paying college players. I know you're against it. I agree with you.
Extended this interview by now.
Oh my God!
I agree with you.
Does B-Dubs deliver? Because we're going to be here all night.
No, I mean just to do a capsule. You guys can go back and listen to the what episode was it you guys talked about? There was a couple.
I don't know.
Don't remember, but yeah, you guys
talked about it a couple times.
You guys got into it, but I think they're exploiting these kids. I think they absolutely should pay them. I don't see why we've allowed it to go on this long. You think of how many millions of dollars these organizations
Billions.
make. It's obscene. So anyway, but I think the one point that you had that I agreed with on this was that how do you value which sports, which positions, because you can't pay them all the same, because obviously, if you want to talk about, or maybe you can, I don't know. I mean, maybe you
the
could.
team's not bringing in the same amount of revenue that the football team is.
My argument was you
Mm-hmm.
pay all the sports the same amount of money.
Right.
Because for one, that makes it uniform.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have somebody saying, well, we'll
Right.
give you such and such an hour, come to this program. Like, no, it needs to be flat across
Mm-hmm.
the board. And look, you're going to pay them. They become athletes. They become employees at that point.
Yeah.
That is all tax-deductible money.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got the schools like, well, we can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, you're making enough money off these schools. Come on.
Yep.
That's just my thought on it. It is exploitation. And
Compromising the amateur nature of the games, and
why? Because
from how on to this point forward, if we start paying a kid $8 an hour to play football, from what standard do we judge amateur from professional? Then, if it's not paid.
My other thing is, and I know there was a 30 for 30 you guys mentioned about how professional athletes go broke. I think that part of that comes from, and I could be wrong, but I think part of that comes from the fact these kids are, a lot of people that become professional athletes do that because it's their only shot to get out of the horrible situation they're in. So they don't come from a background that knows how to deal with money, right? So they're poor when they grow up. They're relatively poor unless they get a sugar daddy at the Alumni Association or whatever, as we saw in Blue Chips.
yes,
that is going to give them some extra money. So what happens? They're poor when they grow up. They're poor when they go to college and they're getting all this fame. Then they get a multi-million-dollar contract, and then they don't know what to do with it because they've never had any money before in their life.
they choose to take care of everybody associated.
Everybody who helped them come up,
Yeah.
they want to fulfill all the promises they've made, and they don't know how to financially manage anything. And they think this is going to last forever. They get an injury, they're out in 4 years, and then what do? They didn't get a real education, as you pointed out in your previous, they gave them
North Carolina.
Come on and raise up. But yeah, you've not really educated them. They're jocks, so they've gotten a pass all their life. They never had a real course. They don't have a background to fall back on, and they don't know how to manage money because they've never even had a little bit. I'm not asking for these people to be paid a lot. Just something something.
I look at it this way too. There's illegal benefits in college sports. Those aren't going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if paying all the kids might make that curb a little bit, but right now there is a specific genre or a specific amount of people who are receiving legal benefits. And they're going to continue to get that while everybody else has to bust their balls and try to make it through. And being a Division I athlete, you're not allowed to have a job. And the NCAA can give stipends, but there's no uniform way to do it. They don't regulate it. So, sorry, you could be a Division I athlete for lacrosse or rowing or something like that and not get a dime just to help you support yourself. So, that's my argument. I think we need to do a better job of educating the college kids.
Yeah.
But also, too, we don't need to make them have to struggle, especially if you're on scholarship, like you can't work, but if you come somewhere your parents can't send you money, you literally have nothing.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. So
Sig?
I don't feel like anybody's ever thoroughly answered my how do you not compromise the amateur nature of the game.
Fair enough.
So
okay,
that's fine.
That's cool.
But no, I mean, if you want to talk about that, like the kids are getting money now. What do you?
Who's getting money now?
Legal benefits
through legal means, through up and up, through other than bagman money. Who's getting legitimate money?
If you pay these kids minimum wage and they get paychecks, how is that compromising the game?
That's the standard with which we draw the line between professionalism and amateurism.
That's strictly a definition.
So now you're going to start changing the definitions of words. Who are you, Bill Clinton? Like, I mean,
it depends what your definition of definition
I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not going to. I don't think in the court of law you're going to win that argument. I'm not. And it's okay. It's okay to disagree. I'm not. I just don't want to see people getting paid.
Fight. I'm kidding. So anyway, I always talk about music. I guess we've been going for more than an hour. We should probably wrap up. But
music sucks.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That's the end. What music you guys listening to lately?
Oh man, I'm kind of all over the place. I've kind of died out on the rap a little bit because everything that comes out now sucks. A lot of Eminem or a lot of old. I like Dre, I like Snoop. I like. I never really got into Wu-Tang. Not to take anything away from you guys are into. Never really got into
I'm not a member of Wu-Tang yet, so it's okay.
I'm not call you cracker. Ghostface cracker.
Is there any room on the bus?
We went and saw Foo Fighters last year. That concert was fucking mind-blowing.
That's awesome.
I found the 90s alternative station on Pandora, and that's pretty much what I've been listening to for the last few weeks. And like, I never fast forward. Like, I love every song that hit.
Yeah, me too, man.
I'm really not into much new stuff. Like, I have SiriusXM in my car, but I'm on like 90s on 9. I'm on Pop 2K. Like, I'm not. I think the new stuff, and every person says that about the stuff that comes in after they're past their prime in terms of being a pop culture consumer.
Right.
But the new stuff that's coming out just lacks any type of substance and character to being.
There are three artists that I will buy an album no matter what for, and that is Eminem, Foo Fighters, and Shinedown. That when they put out an album, I will automatically buy them. Those are really the
I'm not familiar with Shinedown. What is their?
You're not familiar with Shinedown?
Maybe I am, but what is their? Do they have a big song I would know?
Fuck. They're all over the radio.
No, I've probably heard them if they're.
Second Chance is one of their songs.
Staring Down a Barrel of 45. That was their first big one back in like 03, 04.
45.
Maybe.
They did a cover of Simple Man, which is amazing. Bully.
I guess I'll have to look this one up.
Yeah, look up Shinedown. He's got a lot of hits.
Okay, cool.
I really like Aaron Lewis. Sting.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the 90s. That's a 90s thing.
Yeah.
It's more like 2000s thing, though.
Yeah.
Late 90s, early 2000s.
How was yourself, Rob? What do you got?
Oh, all over the place, man. Well, I mean, kind of what you're talking about, man. It's like whenever you first discover music, that's going to make a imprint on your brain. So, I mean, anything from like the 90s alternative, like you're talking about, I'm all in on that. I mean, it's like the older I get, it's like whatever was popular when I was 12. It's kind of like that's what I'm probably going to be listening to when I'm in the old person's home. So
you're into that skilo?
I wish I was a little bit taller.
I'll tell you what kills me. My wife listens to the Pop 2K in her SUV, and when like stuff from like the early 2000s comes on, it hurts my ears. I'm like, why did we ever think this was good? Like, this sounds horrendous. Like, it's pitchy. It sounds like shit. I'm like, I don't understand.
Someone in this room, and I'm not going to mention any names, is a Taylor Swift fan, and it makes me want to throw up my mouth.
She's my guilty pleasure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to look at who wrote a lot of Taylor Swift songs, it's Max Martin and the Swedish team. I read a book called The Sound Machine, where they talk about how 40% of your top 10 music these days is written by the same 4 or 5 Swedish super producers, who Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, Taylor Swift, Ace of Base. You want to go down the line? It's all these goofy Swedes who are writing all the same stuff, and I like it too, man. I've got no problem.
It's catchy as shit, bro. I don't give a fuck.
Exactly. Pop music will exist whether you like it or not, so you may as well have good pop music.
I'm a hipster.
Who's the hipster now?
I want to thank you for having us on, Rob.
Thank you for coming, man. This has been an awesome time.
When I listened to your last show and you gave us a shout out, it was just really cool to hear another show
no problem, man.
talk about us. It was really cool.
Yeah,
it was kind of our. I almost felt like we had arrived. So.
Wow, man, that's awesome.
No,
cool.
it was really cool. We appreciate it.
Thanks for being the first live one. That's awesome. Let's do it again, man.
I hope it doesn't give you a record low for listens. I hope you get some good responses.
The cultured folk who listen to your show.
Somehow it's
like, how'd you have these two? How'd you get these two barbarians out of the zoo?
Actually, yeah.
If you ever want us back, I mean, we're more than willing to come back. So
cool, man.
It's definitely been fun. And thank you for being on our show. That
no problem.
Tonight.
Anytime.
So.
Okay.
We love all y'all.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.